good to be here. It's great that you are there. The theme of this conference is something we could really cherish, I could say. It's related to hope, it's related to what we do with the world as teachers and how we bring those two together, teaching and hope. That's the focus, the focal point of these 2 days. I'm so glad that you made it to come to Pittsburgh and to join us in that conversation. I was here a couple of times before, and I was so excited when I heard that this conference would be in Pittsburgh. I was here as a young scholar in 1994. That's a long time ago. Yes. Just finished my dissertation, and my wife and I, we went abroad to the United States, and we wanted to see where these famous people are, you know, that I had been writing on in my dissertation on moral education. So I was visiting this country, and I went to Pittsburgh and met with some colleagues at UK University. Maureen O'Brien, there you are, yes. Long time ago, but still, the memories are vivid. In 1997, I was there as well for 3 weeks, summer course with a colleague from Leuven, from Belgium. We had great talks with the students at UK University, and we had great beers in the evening downtown. Yeah, that's a summer course, isn't that? And in 2000 again, I came back to Pittsburgh with my wife and had another beautiful week at UK, connected to the Religious Education Association Conference. It's always nice to make those connections. So, I'm glad to be back, actually. And I want you to invite you to be comfortable here in Pittsburgh, downtown Pittsburgh. Close to the point, close to the conflusion, yes, of 2 rivers, the Allegheny River and the Monongahela River, coming together in the Ohio River, which has a large and a huge and interesting historical background. That's where we are. I brought some slides with me to make a sort of connection between where we are now and where I come from. Actually, I'm from Belgium, yes, in the neighborhood of Brussels. I live in the neighborhood of Brussels, in Leuven, beautiful city of Leuven. But I teach at the University of Dortmund in Germany. That's my place, my professional place. And I would like to make some links between Pittsburgh and Dortmund, because they are quite similar in background, in history, in geographical backgrounds. I brought some slides with me to make some comparisons. So you're welcome. Okay, did you already see that's important, that you can connect in many ways with the conference through the social media, yes? You can send pictures all over the world, that's part of the globalized world, of course, and make sure that others at home know where you are. You're here. Good. Where are we? In Pittsburgh. And this is Dortmund. And this is Dortmund. And this is Pittsburgh. I'm not joking, you know. This is Dortmund. So it's interesting to see. It's a former mining area, Ruhrgebiet, the Ruhr area in Germany, in northwestern Germany. Former Ruhr area where there was a lot of mining and also steel industry in the past, and still large industries of steel for the moment, but things are changing in many ways. That's also the case in Pittsburgh. New technologies, new approaches to society and to industry are discovered in this city, just the way it is in Dortmund. This is Pittsburgh. This is Pittsburgh. The Steelers, yeah. The stadium at the other side of the river, the northern river. And this is, and now I know there are some Dortmund fans in the room. This is Dortmund. Borussia Dortmund. Famous soccer team, famous in the world. Yes, they almost got the Champions League a couple of years ago. I mean, atmosphere it's quite similar. It's a huge stadium in the evening where people join and have a good time together and enjoy sports in unity and diversity in many ways. This is Dortmund. This is Dortmund. This is a former brewery, Union Brauerei in Dortmund. Yes. So there is beer in Dortmund. And there is also beer in Pittsburgh. This is this famous church that became the brewery. I think it's called the brewery actually. The church brewery, yes, that became a brewery. If you are in Pittsburgh, you should visit it and have a good beer. Yes. So this is amazing. All those connections. Well, dear friends, it's good to be here and make those connections. And I would like to ask you, just briefly, where are you coming from? Who are you in that connection between Europe and the United States? Where are you coming from? I know a lot of you are from North America, United States and Canada. Could you please raise your hand and that we can see? Okay, that's North America, Canada, and the United States of America. Yes. Is anybody visiting the conference from South America? Not at this point. I was hoping to get someone here from Brazil, but we didn't get it done. Yes. Who are the people who participate from Australia and the? Yeah, okay. Most welcome. Long trip. Yeah, beautiful that you're there. And who are the ones who come from Africa? Yes, Reggie and Anita. Welcome. Also as keynote presenters in the room. Great. And who is coming from Antarctica? Oh, okay. What did I forget? I mean, Australia, New Zealand. Yeah. I mean also. Yeah. Who is coming from Asia? Welcome. Good. Who's coming from Europe? I see people from the Netherlands, I see people from Belgium, I see people from, I come back to you, I see people from Austria, I see people from Germany, of course, yeah. And I know there are people in this room who originally came from Britain, are from Britain, but were dealing with Brexit and are teaching now in Spain. But that was not a sort of relationship, but it has to do with becoming yourself again in a new context. Daniel, good that you're there. Yes, great. Okay. But we all are global citizens. We come from everywhere, so to say. So we are migrants in this world. We travel this world. We get connected all over the place, so to say. And that's part of the sort of the theme of this conference: how we are connected in a globalizing world. When I was preparing this conference and we started the preparation 3 years ago, I was thinking globalizing world, oh that sounds so great, but more and more, I must admit, and that's part also of the speech today, that it is a scattered world as well. And it's a fragmented world. It's a world in turmoil, in many ways, yeah, all over the place. And that's something we need to carry, so to say, in our minds and in our souls and our hearts, bring it with us, and then reflect about and upon our position as teachers in that complex context. So even within 2-3 years of preparation of such a conference, the theme can change and the approaches to the theme can change, which is exciting, of course. But we're still in the brewery. Okay. Well, this is us. I feel so honored to be part of this beautiful group of people. There is Bud Worrell. He's the president, not of the United States, but the president of the Religious Education Association this year. Yes, okay. There is he. That's him. So talk to Bud if you have any thoughts on what should be done in our field, because he's the guy you need to address these days. There is Marianne Latran from Eden Theological Seminary in St. Louis, who is our past president. Hi, Marianne. There is Muala from Ankara University in Turkey. There you are, Muala. Hey, good that you're there, that you made it. She will be the next president after this one here. I mean, yes, after me, because I will be the president in 2017. I'm the president-elect this year, and in the next year, Muala will take over the conference in 2017. She will tell you more about it. It's an exciting theme. I won't say anything about it. It is exciting. You should be there. Try to be there. But it's good that you're here. And I want to invite you to think about where we come from, the four of us. So we are people who are united, so to say, in the passion for religious education all over the world, but also united in a sort of common pain, if I may say it this way. Because when I think of Bart, he works at Fordham University in New York City. Well, that reminds me of 9/11. Yes. And Marjan works in St. Louis, and we were visiting Ferguson when we had a spring break. Reminds me of Ferguson. And Muala lives in a country, in a city, where there were two major attacks this last year. Yes, but so many people died. And I live in the neighborhood of Brussels, where on the 22nd of March, so many people died as well, in the underground and in the airport. Everything is safe now, but what is safe? So we are in a constant context of dealing with complexity and with complex themes and searching for hope in that context. That is us, that's we. So I invite you to join us in our common effort to restore and to generate hope in our teaching professions. The program looks as follows. We will start with a plenary address, and then afterwards we go to another room where we will have this lightning round, where we invite all of you to present new research or research in progress, work in progress. Just you get 30 seconds later to say what you're doing, writing a book, writing a project, whatever, and then we make a sort of marketplace, and we can walk all over the place and look and talk to people and exchange thoughts. So feel free to connect to people in that plenary, in that breakout session number 1, following up on this one. In that session will also be the 12 beautiful posters of junior research. I must say, great research is going on in our field. So feel free to walk around in that next session and see what's going on as hopeful and participative research for the future. And then this afternoon we will exchange some biographical perspectives. I invited 4 people from different countries to tell about their biographies as a teacher in higher education, in education in general. Yes. That will be the biographical part, that's plenary 2. And then plenary 3 tomorrow morning will be a theoretical approach with David Hansen from New York City, from Columbia Teachers College. Very excited about what he will be presenting. And a reflection from Aaron Giloni from Australia, yes, on that presentation of David Hansen. So that's more the deepening of the teaching role within that context. And then at the end of the conference, in the afternoon, already tomorrow in the afternoon, we will have the 4th plenary. We have a sort of global perspective on what we're doing, and we invited Elizabeth Conde-Frazier from Esperanza College in Philadelphia and Reginald from the University of South Africa in Pretoria to give us some views on what it means to be a teacher in a globalizing world. That's the program. But there's so many else you can do. So that was important for us to change in a way the program. We have been thinking a lot about this, you know. We have been struggling with this. We have been in spring break. We had interesting but also difficult conversations about this, but we finally got there, I think, in rethinking the format of the conference. We want to have more time for networking, for exchange, for thoughts, for exchange of research and so on. So feel free to make use of every free moment to connect to others. Yes, and we didn't want to see you, so to say, flee away on Sunday morning. That's what happened in the past. So often people were not attending the plenary address anymore or the business meeting. No, we want to be you in the business meeting. We want to be you there with the plenary address. I mean, also for the business meeting. It's you part of the association who can do the sort of democratic effort to come together and work together. So it's important that the networking is there and that the participation is there. You know what I mean? Is that okay? Mm-hmm. So you will have plenty of chances to utter your own voice on this. I mean, through the questionnaires and also through the social media. We'll talk more about this later. How this works with your devices. You can immediately evaluate the session that you're in. Yes. Okay. So we need your feedback. We need your exchange, and we need your networking. I would especially encourage the younger scholars among us to come to the fore. Why not? I mean, present yourself. Talk to the elder ones. The elder ones, who are the elder ones? Yes. Address them, ask them questions, and present yourself. Say what you're doing. It's so important that there is an intergenerational effect as well in the conference. Okay. And I would say enjoy the beauty of being together as colleagues, as friends. Enjoy the good times together. Yes. We will have a band tonight. It's a young people's band, so in the folder. The Funky Fly Project. So we were looking for this, and I thought we need to do something special with young people. If it's all about hope, we should. And we found them. Thanks to Helen Blyer of Pittsburgh, by the way. Yes. Helen helped us to find that band, and that band. It was not easy to get them here because there are insurances, issues, and so many stuff. So if you want to give young people a stage, you can't imagine how much work that needs. Downtown Pittsburgh or downtown whatever, you know. So give them a stage, give them a voice. That is costly and that takes time, that takes energy. But we made it. I hope so. We made it because they're still in class today. They're attending their high school. So enjoy the beauty and friendship and the collegiality also tonight at our new format of banquet. The fest, community feast fest. I'm not quite sure, Mary, what the difference is between feast and fest, but fest sounds we German and feast sounds we American, so that's, yeah, okay. Okay, I know. Okay. I now give the floor to Courtney Gotto. And I want you to invite you. I want to invite you to come to find a moment of sort of spiritual going back into yourself. And I invited not only Courtney Gotto but also Bob Dylan. You're in good company. Yes. So the Nobel Prize winner of literature. Yes. That was a surprise. Yes. I invite you to listen to his voice. He can help us to understand what we're doing here. I mean, he brings together so many different forces in the same song, and the deep longing, the deep hope is in the same song. It's an old song. It's a contestation song of the 60s. Yes, you know it all. Yes, we won't sing it. We just listen to the text and be aware of the literature behind it, because I think it's literature. Just listen carefully to the text. Courtney will read it for us, and that's the moment that we can start. Then afterwards. With the session. Then Bud takes over.
How many roads must a man walk down before you can call him a man? Yes, and how many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? Yes, and how many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? How many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? Yes, and how many ears must one man really have before he can hear people cry? Yes, and how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? How many years can a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? Yes, and how many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? Yes, and how many times can a man turn his head, pretending he just doesn't see?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Bud Harrell, President of the REA, and Bert has given us a wonderful overview of the conference, but I have one more business sort of item to attend to. If you look at the annual meeting schedule on SCED, you'll find a feedback survey button next to each session. And after each session, we ask you to click on it and to evaluate that session. Or the feedback survey can be found on the REA website. If you are in a rig or other breakout in which there is more than one presenter and you evaluate it, please make sure that you use the what session are you giving feedback about menu at the top of that survey to choose the speaker you are evaluating. Each time you complete a survey, you will be included, you may include your email address to be entered into a drawing to win a $25 Amazon gift card. So if you do the survey, there's a possibility you could win. Your survey responses will be kept anonymous even if you enter the drawing. One of our traditions here at the REA is to have the president-elect give the presidential address. And our president-elect is, of course, Bert Rubin, who began the day and introduced it for us. I have the great honor now, before Bert gives his presidential address, to tell you a little bit more about him. Bert holds a PhD in theology from the Louvain. He also holds an MA in religious studies, an MA in theology, a BA in educational sciences, and maybe somewhat surprisingly, also a BA in canon law. If you've been a priest, you could have been a bishop with a degree in educational background. Bert's academic work is at the intersection of theology, pedagogy, and youth studies. In many scholarly works, he impressively combines empirical research with conceptual philosophical analysis and models how, as religious educators, we can engage in interdisciplinary scholarship focused in exploring questions concerning teaching and learning as they intersect with issues of religion. Bert currently serves as full professor on the Faculty of the Humanities and Theology of Dartmouth University in Germany. On a personal level, I will note that Bert is a great lover of beer and Bob Dylan. Those of you who know Bert know that his professional work, as well as all other aspects of his life, are grounded in a deep spirituality that is coupled with a wide-ranging intellectual curiosity. He's a wonderful listener and has a gifted ability to work collaboratively with others. He brings his many fine qualities together in the classroom and is a superb teacher. I welcome our President-elect, Bert Rubin.
Thank you very much, Bart, for this beautiful introduction. I feel honored. Thank you. The theme of my presentation, of my presidential address, is the theme of the conference, generating hope and the future of the teaching profession in globalized world. This is research that has been evolving for many years, and I just referred to 3 books that I've been doing in this field. And the left one is a Dutch book, my mother tongue. The second one is in German, has been published this year, and the third one is not been published yet. It's there. It must be somewhere in the pipeline. I hope to bring it with me to the conference, but we were not able to do so. That's the third one. It's in English. Theology Made in Dignity, on the precarious role of theology in religious education. The second one in German is on a didactics of hope. So I was thinking about how to bring professionality and the hope dynamics within to the spirituality of the teacher. And the first one here is in Dutch. It's a book on religious education as inclusive religious education. Inclusieve godsdienstpedagogiek. Inclusive religious education. This is sort of work I'm doing, that's where I am, and I want to invite you to join me in my reflections. These are open reflections. These are, I know, they are contextualized and they are limited because I come from a specific context, Europe, Western Europe. I would say I'm white, I'm male, I am Catholic, okay, and so many other aspects defining who I am, the beer and Bob Dylan and other things, of course, that's true. Yes. So it's always contextual really, but that's an open door, isn't it? So my research is an invitation to you to, from your perspective, from your background, to think along with me and see how this fits in or not fits in into your work. What's the overview? What I'm trying to do here is to, in 3 steps, I want to offer you a sort of meditation on hope in the first step. Yes, I want to invite you in a meditation on what it means to be a hopeful person. Hope is a dimension of the soul, says Václav Havel, the former president of the Czech Republic, who was in prison for many years before he became the president of that new country in Central Europe. I would like to invite you to dare radical existentialism, because he is not writing about religion, he's writing about being a human being, imprisoned, and what that means. It's all about isolation and despair. Then comes secondly the practice of hope as a practice of overcoming isolation, interrupting isolation. And I would like to invite you to reflect on this, how we can perhaps invite our students and our children and our young people and ourselves to learn to say thou again in society. Yes. Who are you? Who am I? What can I do for you? Yes. I think hope has to do with this interrupting, this overcoming of isolation and attending to the other and responding to the other, becoming a responsible person and saying thou. Yes. Thou, so that we can become a new we. That will be the second point of my presentation. And learning in the presence, in the living presence of the other, as Mary Boyce always has been working on in this country. And then finally, I would like to invite you to a sort of eschatological reflection on hope. Edward Schillebeeckx, which is a famous theologian, Catholic theologian from my country, I'm proud of him, yes. Although he died many years, but I'm still proud of his legacy. He was talking about the existential or the eschatological surplus of hope. Yes. So we are confident that we can change the world. Yes, change through our education. But we should also be confident about the eschatological dimension. It's always open for the future, open for something that we could not foresee. That's the theological dimension, you could say. So I have a sort of philosophical approach in the first part, an educational approach in the second part, and a theological reflection in the third part. Philosophy, education, theology. That's the invitation. Yes. Okay. I must say now that this presentation will not end with a happy end. It's open. It's an open end. I will show you a video at the end, which is quite disturbing and quite provocative. Yeah? But we need to deal with that, I think, because it's about us, about what we're doing and who we are. But don't worry. I'll try to be as friendly as possible during the presentation. Yes, but be sure there will be no Hollywood happy end at the end. But we're not in Hollywood. We're in Pittsburgh. Hope as a dimension of the soul. This is Václav Havel. I read this book many years ago, and I read it again on one of my walks just a couple of months ago during the summer in my country, alone with myself, and reading that stuff again. His letters to Olga, to his wife in prison. Letters to Olga. It's also published or translated in English. And he says, either we have hope within us or we don't. It's a dimension of the soul. It's not essentially dependent upon some particular observation of the world or estimate of the situation. It's a dimension of the person, of the soul, of the human being. And hope is not a conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense, regardless of how it turns out. So it's not just a positive sort of optimism. No, it's a realistic hope. That is important. That was important to me. And he is reflecting in his book, in his letters, which were published in that book, on what it means to be a person of hope in a context of isolation. He was imprisoned, yes, for many years, and he was dealing with himself in all that complexity, and he was asking his wife Olga all the time, connect, please write back, because she was not a good writer. He was a good writer, of course, he wrote many theater pieces and stuff, and novels, but she was not reacting, so that she was not a good writer. She had problems with writing, and that was one of his deepest experiences of despair, that his wife was not responding to him. He felt isolated. So he felt in despair, hopeless. So that was where he was struggling with. And I think imprisonment is a metaphor for hope under existential pressure, like Gabriel Marcel also says in his book Homo Viator, the French philosopher. It's being isolated and disconnected from communication. Disconnected from communication. Pavel is especially experiencing this isolation on Sundays. We know Sundays, yes. That we don't work, okay, although we are workaholics. Try not to work on Sundays, on Shabbat, yes. He was doing neither, but he felt very, very alone at these times. Nothing to do, nobody there, and the ultimate nothing was sneaking in, he called it, yes, on those lazy Sundays. How to defend oneself to despair and act against despair, how to consolidate oneself was one of his main questions in his book and in his letters to all them. Through a permanent reconstruction of the self, I do not want to change myself, he said, but I do want to become a better self. So he needed his writing and his thinking and his letters to become a better self in these difficult circumstances. Writing and storytelling was then sort of way out, a virtual way out of the imprisonment. And he was calling the author, calling his wife, hoping for his wife to respond and others to respond in order not to sink into what he called the swamp of innocence. He was creating rituals in order to survive. For instance, he was having these tea ceremonies to survive in jail. But one of the deepest longings was his communication with his wife, and the need for response from the need for communication with his wife. And when a letter came in, he was so excited. Yes? And he always asked her, do write, don't worry about what you're writing, just write me a letter. So in the non-internet times, before 30 years, we wrote letters to each other. You remember that? Oh, that was beautiful. Writing letters, waiting for the letter to come. Looking at the postbox every month, not the internet postbox, but the postbox, and look at the postbox. Where is the letter from this girlfriend? Why doesn't she answer me? Oh my God. What did I do wrong? I'm isolated. Yeah, you know. From this point of view, says Gabriel Marcel in his book Homo Viator, important book. It's online, you can find it in English online as well. From this point of view, hope means first accepting the trial as an integral part of itself, the imprisonment, the disconnection. But while doing so, it considers it as destined to be absorbed and transmuted by the inner workings of a certain creative process. So a creative process can exist and can be raised within that experience of imprisonment. Can be, not should be, can be. That's the whole thing, of course. So what does it mean to be trapped in despair, in isolation and exclusion? It means you're not able to escape, not to move at all. What is isolation? It's being stuck. Not being able to respond, so to say, to the basic structure of life, which is growing, walking, growing as a human being. And I found even elements of hope in the writings of Thomas Aquinas. He says, well, hope is deeply connected to knowledge. Knowledge and hope are come together. His philosophy in the Middle Ages was a philosophical and an epistemological approach to knowledge, and deep in it is hope, he says. Yes? Inquisitive knowledge is always embedded in hope. I want to learn something. Or Paulo Freire, he says we have to grow in completeness as human beings. Being at home on the road, I would say. living one's own life as a homo viator. You know that the pilgrimage idea is very important for me. Being at home on the road. So, and isolation and despair is precisely this experience. I'm not able to move anymore. And that's precisely what you can see as a paradox. It's a deep paradox, actually, in the life of so many refugees these days. They are on the road. You could say they move, okay. But they are stuck on the road to nowhere. That's a deep, deep existential problem for people who are refugees. I've read that in this beautiful book of Reagan, what is his first name? Not Donald. Okay, not. Okay, yeah, not him. Sorry. Should mix up all those presidents with this. I need to drink. It's not beer, it's water. It's water, Stephen. It's water. I'm fine. So they're on the road to nowhere. And in this book, this Reagan is telling us situations, is narrating situations in downtown London where he's working with youth at risk. And where so many young people are stuck, so to say, in their own biographies. They can't get out of it. They are dealing with drugs, with gang violence, with hopelessness, with no future. And that's where he is trying to interrupt and to overcome the isolation. That's giving hope to young people. So I invite you now for a moment to think about what are just, actually with your neighbor, just, we don't make any sort of plenary coming together, but just some thoughts, think about it. What could be situations of isolation for young people, for children, for young adults, for ourselves perhaps, when we look at this world and when we feel trapped in discommunication, so to say. Yes. So that's an invitation to you. Think and share for a moment. Being on the road, yes. Think and share, just 2 minutes. What are situations of disconnection and situations of isolation in a broader sense? It's up to you. Yes, it's like in the church in the back, they're talking all the time. Okay, we continue. I want to invite you now to join me in the second step, which is the educational step. So we had a philosophical introduction in a sort of meditation of hope together with Václav Havel and Gabriel Marcel. Now we step into an educational dynamic, and I want to invite you to be part of this journey, a second journey. I was having a great time with my wife this summer at the Austrian border with Slovenia in Europe. Yes. It's a beautiful southern part of Austria in Steiermark. Has a nice border with Slovenia. And Slovenia is another world. Slovenia is the Balkan. Yes, it's another language, it's another culture, but still there are connections with of course with the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. Austria is German speaking, Slovenia is Slovenian speaking. I mean it's Slavic. Yeah? Two different cultures, but when you walk on that ridge, beautiful ridge, you are constantly walking between cultures and between both. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's an invitation. Matthias Schare, he's from Austria, from Innsbruck, and I don't know if you know this region, Steiermark. You were in that place too? Oh, that is amazing, because it's a beautiful place. You were there, yes? It's the neighborhood of Svätý Duh, Heilige Geist, Holy Spirit. So that's the name of that church at the Slovenian border. And there is a beautiful place where you walk, and it reminded me this summer very deeply about the large streams of refugees coming in from the Balkan. You remember these images in 2015? Knocking at the German border, please can we come in? Coming from Budapest and coming from the south, coming from Croatia, through Slovenia and so on. Yes, it was quite empty at that moment. There was nobody in the walls. It was empty. Yes, but still the nature was beautiful and the sun was shining and we were having a good time in that beautiful context. But I was thinking, hey, not precisely on this spot, but people were crossing the boundary to come to Germany and to come to Austria, and to come to Belgium, to the Netherlands. And what were their stories, so to say, on that road? And when we got in that place, yes, we were thirsty, my wife and I. It was in midday, and we found this beautiful spot There it is. With these two chairs, you could sit there, you feel welcome, yes? So I can imagine when refugees are on the road, they could feel welcome as well, but that's the huge discourse, of course, are they welcome or not? We felt very welcome, there was nobody, we were the only two of us. We were sitting in those beautiful chairs, we were thirsty, we were hungry, and there was this beautiful cabinet where we could grab some food, grab. I mean, that's an American expression, grab some food. I mean, the word grab has been used in other contexts as well. But just grabbing, I hate the word grabbing, because grabbing is really, that's very offensive. You just grab, yes, you know? It's all about, there is the food, look at the food, yes? Look at the drinks, look at the refreshment. And the nice thing was, we were invited to use these fruits and drinks. We had to pay for them, of course. There was nobody asking us first to pay. There was nobody. So we were welcome, but we had to pay as well. So there is being welcome and being accountable, you know what I mean? And there was this beautiful place where we had to pay. That's a casa. The casa means there you need to drop in the box you need to drop your money. That's my wife, Mieke. She has taken something out of the fridge there, not grabbing, but taking slowly. And there is the casa. And you see, look very carefully, above the casa there is this mirror. I like this image very much. It's all about, are you accountable? Are you sincere? Are you an honest person? Can you live with this? Can you live with that context on that bridge? And are you prepared to pay, which is part of the game? Yes. And are you a moral person? Are you responsible? Can you respond to that? So that made me think very intensively on that specific place about the tension between the refugees and the refugee crisis, which is a crisis of humanity. Yes. And on the other hand, who am I? How do we address the situation when we look in the mirror? Yes. This is very deep for me, and I invite you to think about this, because I really think that the starting point for a new global, and in a fractured world, a new global dynamics for education and religious education and teaching could be that we become aware of the moral education which is deeply rooted in that. What about, are we moral persons? And are we able to be responsible and accountable to others and to ourselves and to the community? This is a quote from a marvelous book from Terry Veling. Yes, he's a professor in Brisbane. And he was actually the supervisor of your dissertation, Aaron. Yeah, beautiful that you're in the place as well. Beautiful. Terry Veling studied at Boston College. Is that right? Yeah. Terry wrote a beautiful book on Levinas, Emmanuel Levinas. And he says, what is responsibility? This is this. It's vocation, he says. It's being a moral person as a vocation. I cannot ask someone else to answer for my life. I have no alibi that can come to my defense. I cannot evade the answerable act or deed of my own life. No one can answer for me or take my place. Only I can respond to another, looking into the mirror, so to say. And this is what constitutes the singularity of my unique place in existence, and the unique vocation or answerability, vocation or answerability of my life. In other words, I am required. So I am required. What does that mean for us as teachers? What does that mean for our children, our young people, our future citizens? I am required. So I really deeply believe that society can only grow in shared humanity, so to say, when people feel required and can contribute to the new we by offering their unique you me to others. Who am I, and what do I have to offer to society and to the community? The Dutch philosopher Harry Koeneman argues that new forms of autonomy are needed, making a shift from the thick I to the deep I. The person who is aware of his unique contribution to the world and who is able to communicate his contribution critically and aptly and can listen to the stories of others. Autography, he calls it autography, Koeneman. Autography then replaces autonomy. I like this. I mean, being aware of the story of your life, being a responsible person, be sure that there's a vocation in your life and trying to express it in many ways. I think so many young people are craving for this. I mean, this is a story that's old, but it's becoming more and more intense in these days. They are craving for a personhood and someone who asks them, who are you? What is your vocation? So if nobody asks you who you are, it ain't worth listening. That I learned from Michael Warren, which was one of our colleagues in this association for many years. Yes, it ain't worth listening. So that's the problem of many young people, I think. Nobody's asking them anything. We're afraid of them. Yeah. So we should be sure that we can that there's something they can offer us, a new me, so to say, in order that the new we can be can get in place. There's a beautiful website in the Netherlands for those who understand Dutch, newwe.nl, but it's in Dutch. But that's a nice idea of bringing people together. Focusing on this moral education part of what we do. And then responsibility or answerability is the pen with which we write the story of the new creation into the history of being, says Václav Havel in his letters to Olga. And the Dalai Lama says, and this is a very, very provocative quote actually, sometimes I believe, says the Dalai Lama, it would be better if we had no religions at all. Because every holy scripture and every religion contains potential violence. That is why we need a secular ethics beyond religions, transcending them. That is provocative for us as religious educators. If this is true, we have to close our shops. But perhaps it's not completely true. I think we can, of course, think about how we can bring in the rich traditions of our backgrounds into that larger conversation in society. We have so much to offer in that broad variety, in that splendid broad variety of religious traditions and non-religious traditions and worldviews. That's what Habermas says. Yes. So use the semantic potential, he calls it, which is in your tradition, to open up this larger space of communication and of this idea of coming together and learning to be a responsible person. Responsible persons for the well-being of the common good, the new we. I was surprised when I read it, Dalai Lama's text. I was really surprised. So I invite you again to think and share just briefly. Yes. Let's have a look in that mirror, on that beautiful spot there on the border between Austria and Slovenia. Just have a look. Am I ready to say thou for the benefit of us? I mean, saying thou, I like this word, thou. You could say you, okay. But the thou is more polite. It has almost sacred dimension. So the other, like Elena says, has a sort of sacred dimension. Am I ready to say thou to the other? You first, please. You go first through that door. I'm behind you. Après vous, en français. So you go first. What does that mean deeply if we adapt a sort of lifestyle in that sense of the word? After you, and how can we teach that, and how can we learn this also for ourselves? So my question is, are we ready? Am I ready? It's a deep question. You shouldn't answer it now immediately. Yes, you need probably some more time to think about it. You can do it at the end of the conference, perhaps, or during one of those beautiful moments of encounter. Or can thou count on me? So that hope is generated for us. That's a saying of Gabriel Marcel. Can thou count on me so that hope is generated for us? Yes. Are we ready to write letters to the one who's isolated? Are we ready to get the other one who's isolated into the communication and the communion again? And is my new me, that's so important, my new me, is the storyteller behind me, is he or she deep enough so that I can invite thou to become part of the new we? Is there an invitation? Is there a vocation and answerability in that? That's my question to you. You should not answer this immediately because it's a deep reflection, but think a moment about it. Perhaps you can do this, you don't need to share this now. Just take a moment of reflection for yourself, because sharing this is a larger process. Take some time for yourself. What could that mean? do not misunderstand me. I'm not inviting you to the Catholic sort of confession. It's not about being Catholic and confession or so. It's an open invitation. You know what I mean? Yes. But it's a confession like August, St. Augustine would say. Yes? Who am I when I deal with my faith in an honest and sincere way? What does this mean for teaching? And for teaching as overcoming isolation? I give you some thoughts, and I will write it up in the full paper, which will be published later in the journal, yes? But there are so many thoughts coming together from the United States, from Europe, from Africa, from Australia. I already referred to Terry Gilling. So many thoughts come together here. I think we have here a really sort of global dynamic which could be contextualized in so many places. It's about interrupting immunization and by communization. You understand this? Yes? To interrupt immunization. People are immune for each other. I won't talk to you, you know. It's by communization. That's Mascherlein and Simons, two Belgian philosophers of education who have coined this idea of immunization and communization. Offering interaction chances and moments of exposure, they call it. Yes. So expose kids to each other. And expose yourself as a teacher to the kids. Why not? You are required. You are required as a teacher, and the kids are required in the communication. You are required, like Abraham Joshua Heschel said in that quote of Terry Gilliam. It's also about counteracting violence by honoring the dignity of young people. I refer you to the book of Evelyn Parker, one of our members. Yes. And not being afraid of them. Not being afraid of young people. Showing them existential possibilities and helping them to articulate their visions, like Heather Walton says. Heather Walton is a practical theologian in Scotland. Yes. Help them to understand who they are and support them in the articulation of their vision by offering them rich, deep stories. It's about the imagination, like we discussed last year actually in the conference. And in this learning community, and when people come together and are dealing with this overcoming of isolation, David Hansen, who is the speaker of tomorrow morning, is talking about the learning community as a place where the teacher and his students, or her students, should be moving closer and closer apart, and should be moving farther and farther together. I like this quote very much. To understand the deep meaning of that, you need to be an English speaker, I think. And I can't grasp the deepest meaning of that, but I think it's deep. No, but this is not a barrier, you know. I just want to put it in the middle somewhere. The language barrier. Yes. So be inviting and communicative to each other, because many people in this room are not native speakers. Not only from Europe or Africa or so, but also I think in this country. So what Paul Ricoeur calls this linguistic hospitality. I like this very much. The chance to talk and to listen in the language itself, to learn and to communicate with each other. In the language, in speaking, one can understand what it means. So I try to understand what David Hansen is saying. I will ask him tomorrow again. David is coming tomorrow, or tonight, yes. It's the teacher and the students should be moving closer and closer together, apart, and should be moving farther and farther together. So they come closer to each other, and together they move farther. Yes? Does that sort of mean that? It's about resilience. It's about getting kids out of the isolation and give them, empower them. It's about storytelling. Tell me your story. You have a great story. Don't tell me the story about the market and media. Tell you your story. I want to hear your story. What is your story? What is the deep eyes, so to say, in you? And to learn in the presence of the other. I learned this actually from Mary Boyce many years ago. I remember when I was visiting the conference in the late 90s that Mary Boyce and Sarah Little were having this conversation on learning in the presence of the other. I learned so much from that, and that became, so to say, the motto of my own research and of evolving research in my own department on how to deal with the actual living presence of the other in context of learning. Not the religious group or another community, but the actual living other sitting next to you. And how am I responsible to him or her sitting next to me? I was deeply, and that's the background, I was deeply influenced by my doctoral father, my Dr. Vater. That's the German expression, your father, your doctoral father. Yes. Who was a specialist, or he still is, he still lives. He's a specialist in Levinas, minor Levinas. Roger Burggraaf is his name, yes, teaching in Leuven. And he learned me how to deal with that. And I'm thinking all the time, deeper and deeper, and all over the place I come back to Levinas. I had the chance to visit him together with Roger Burggraaf when he was still alive. I was sitting next to Levinas. I was sitting next to Levinas. I didn't say he was sitting next to me. I was sitting now, okay? I have a picture. But it's a picture, I mean, it's not a digital picture, it's really such a paper picture. I cherish this deeply. Resilience, storytelling, and learning in the presence of the other. These are, so to say, the three features in teaching and overcoming isolation. I just go briefly into that, because so many other things can be said, and I have to watch also for the clock. According to Gabriel Marcel, as teachers, we should introduce the element of patience into non-acceptance of situations of isolation. So patience is one of those things that we can learn, or we can teach, or we can learn ourselves, of course, when we deal with situations of communication. But how to create patience in the midst, or in the mindset of a young person desperately looking for change? A simple expression, says Gabriel Marcel, quote him here, is borrowed from everyday language, is a help, could be a help here, to take one's time. Take your time. It's so important in our rushy society. Take your time, an examiner would say in school or in a university, for example, to a laureate candidate. Take your time. Yes. That means do not force the personal rhythm, the proper cadence of your reflection or even of your memory. For if you do so, you will spoil your chances. You will be likely to say at random the first words which come into your head or in your mind. So take your time. Be reflective. Are we able to give young people time to become themselves? To reflect. Resilience has to do with, wow, I have time. I would say slowification, yes, which is almost unthinkable of in our society nowadays. And in our educational contexts. We work in fabrics. I mean, we live in huge factories in which learning is processed. Yes. And I must say, that's a deep concern for me. I hope that we can find new ways of slowification of learning processes in schools and in education in general. So one of the issues is, of course, Mr. Rubin, this is a great speech, which is true. It's resilience, no? But how do you make this come true? What is the realistic part of it? What's the rubber on the road, like you say this in English, how do you get it on the road? That's one of the issues, of course. So that's the kind of reflection we have to go through and talk about this. And that's the kind of reflection I'm doing with students all the time as well. So how can this become true? And I think we have tools, we have ways to make this possible. There are nice, and not only nice, but interesting and exciting tools, pedagogical tools to make this come true, I think. And we should, as religious educators, we have their task, I really believe. So I'm now in a position as a president or future president to say something like this. We should do that. I mean, should open up the educational space and look for formats of slowification within our processes. That's our task, that's our contribution in society, as far as I can see. As far as I can see. I can't see that far. Storytelling is another thing. Just briefly, I think we need, as far as I can see, to support young people, children, young people, young adults, and ourselves again in storytelling, yes? Which is, I think, has three moments. It's the performance, the experience, yes? It's the interpretation of the experience, And it could be also a theological conceptualization of that interpretation. Yes? It's the performance on stage, it's the storytelling backstage, so to say, and it's the discussion and the writing, the creative writing after stage. This reminds me partly also of your work, Matthias, the communicative theology. Yes, we've had the same 3 steps. Being aware of where you are, doing something. Not just talk about things, but do things. Then go deeper in it, and go to the deeper and thick eye, tell the story behind it. And then offer also these kids and these young people conceptual frameworks to understand what they do, where they come from, traditions, backgrounds, worldviews, history, very important. So the conceptualization behind it is, as a meta-reflection, relates to that 3 steps, so to say. And then finally, as a final input, so to say, in the interruption of isolation, learning in the presence of the other. This is a beautiful image. I like this image very much. It's an image a picture that reflects one of our conversations with young refugees in Germany. So we had a project with students in a course on diversity. We visited, we had an offer, we were having an exchange with young refugees who were not accompanied, is that the way you say it? Yes, who were not with their parents or so, who flew away from Africa, from Syria, from Iraq, from other places. And they were a whole year already together as a group, 15 people almost. And this is the teacher here, this guy. Yes, Mr. Breuer. A great guy. He was a social worker, so to say, helping these young people to understand where they come from, where they go to, their storytelling and so on. He was an excellent teacher, and they really appreciated him, and they became accountable and answerable. I found these people great, and our students were also involved in that larger process of dealing with them and talking to them. Other faculties of the university also had contributions to make. It was very interesting actually to see how these young people reacted also to engineering, to language, to history and stuff, but also to religion. And the guy said, the teacher said, be careful with religion when you address that religious stuff, yes, into that group, because they have all kinds of stories, and I think it's explosive material when you thematize, when you articulate the theme of religion in that context. And we were talking about this with the students, and we said, well, what can we do? And we had 2 sessions. The first session, we have found a way to deal with it. The first session was an intercultural encounter. So religious educators are good at intercultural encounter. You must say, like it is. That was what we did. So first week was intercultural exchange between our students, our young people, and the students or young people coming from abroad. And in the second week, we talked about religion. And that was amazing. We were using the story of Abraham and the oak of Mamre, yes, and the hospitality story, you know the story, which can be found in the Hebrew Bible, can also be found, so to say, as a story of hospitality in the New Testament, and can also be found in the Quran. So this was a beautiful story to address together with the students, and we had a good time together. And what is remarkable, people, what is so remarkable was that these young people were not asking, what can I learn from that story for me, but they were asking for more information, actually. They wanted information. That was very interesting. There were several young people coming from Africa, Christians, and they asked our students, so you're Christian too in Germany? How do you read that story? What is Christianity in Germany? So it's not always about, that's a sort of, we call this religification, Daniel. Huh? It's not only about ascription of the Muslims and the Christians, but it's about human beings sitting together and learning from each other. And interesting is to see that the Christians coming from all over the place, all over the world, were asking our Christians, how do you see Christianity? So, I mean, all those global dynamics do also change our religious education. Not only interreligiously, but also in the religion itself. That's a true challenge that's coming to us. Not only interreligiously, but how are we affecting each other in our own religious understanding? Learning in the presence of the other. The teacher said at the end, very impressed. He was impressed. Yes, he was impressed. And we were glad he was impressed. Think and share, just briefly, very briefly. Sure, we can offer space for resilience, for storytelling to young people, for occasions to learn in the presence of the other. What else could a teacher do in that context? So interrupting isolation, bringing people together, young people together. What can we do to make this happen in a classroom, in a community, in a congregation, in forms of adult education and so on? How can we stimulate our students, our young people, themselves to become involved in that new we? Think about it. And share. I mean, this is, why not? This is something which is more open for 3 minutes. 3 minutes. That's great. You will have definitely more chances to interact, to communicate, yes, to exchange. Don't stay isolated in isolation and just exchange what your thoughts are on this kind of critical and creative pedagogy to address situations of interrupting and overcoming isolation. We come to the third and final part, hope as an eschatological surplus. That's also a quote by Edward Schillig's. And there's this beautiful quote, which I like very much, I must say. Yes? It says, "Blessed is he who hopes and who sleeps." So that's the eschatological dimension. It's about working, it's about struggle, it's about hopeful struggle. So don't misunderstand me. It could be false, it could be a false understanding in the final part. Well, there is God, or there is the ultimate being, or there is something external that is hovering over us, and we just, or the Holy Spirit, whatever, we just have to sleep and then everything will be fine, you know? No, it's hard work. It's a struggle. It's a permanent struggle for you to be a hopeful person and a person of vocation, and to invite others to become persons of vocation. But I think we also should think about the theological part of it. And I believe really that here again, on this spiritual level, we can find each other in the different denominations and in the different religions. Understanding what it means to be a person of hope has also a theological dimension. Hoping for something to come. Like Jürgen Moltmann said, it's not only about futurum, it's the adventus, what's coming to us. It's very interesting. I found a text, which is a text, sounds familiar to Christians in this room, I could say, which is really focusing on this element of being a person of vocation is a person who struggles, but also a person who sleeps, who can sleep, right? And who can expect and hope. But I found similar texts. So this is my perspective. Yes, this is where I'm thinking from. But I found similar texts in the Hebrew Bible, in the Old Testament, by the prophet Isaiah, and in the Quran. Yes, and I asked my friend in the Netherlands, who's a Muslim, help me to find texts. And can we ways to find to deal with the same? And he helped me. And it was amazing actually that exchange. There is this text. You know the text. Yes, perhaps it's not familiar to all of you, but it's an invitation. This comes from the Gospel of Mark in the New Testament. This is what the kingdom of God is like. A man scatters seed on the ground, night and day, whether he sleeps or gets up. The seed sprouts and grows, thou he does not know how. Thou he does not know how. All by itself the soil produces grain, first the stalk, then the head, then the full kernel in the head. As soon as the grain is ripe, he puts the sickle to it, because the harvest has come. You know this image, beautiful image, Vincent van Gogh, coming from the lowlands, from the Netherlands. Yes. That's where we are. Yeah. Come and visit us. Why should we come over with the Religious Education Association? Let's talk about this. You know this story. Here is a story from the Old Testament, from the Hebrew Bible. Prophet Isaiah, chapter 55. I like this text very much. As the rain and the snow come down from heaven and do not return to it without watering the earth and making it bud and flourish, so that it yields seed for the sower and bread for the eater, so is my word, says the Lord, that goes out from my mouth. It will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I desire and achieve the purpose for which I send it. It's amazing, isn't it? And in the Holy Quran, you find this text. Allah is speaking, through the Prophet, of course. The example of this worldly life is but like rain, which we have sent down from the sky, that the plants of the earth absorb, those from which man and livestock eat, until when the earth has taken on its adornment and is beautified, and its people suppose that they have the capability over it, there comes to it our command by night or by day, and we make it as a harvest, as if it had not flourished yesterday. Thus do we explain in detail the signs for a people who give thought, responsible people. I'm wrapping up my session, slowly but surely. I want to refer to this beautiful book. John Caputo, he's a Catholic theologian. He retired a couple of years ago, or last year I think, and he wrote this book, Hoping Against Hope. He says in one of his comments to this book, I wrote this with my left hand. My academic stuff, my CV stuff, I write with my right hand, he says. But now I'm retired, I write with my left hand this kind of books, which I really, truly love. You know this? Just between brackets, I hope we write more with the left hand. Also in academia. So academia should think about writing people with left hands. You know what I mean? Okay. This is a beautiful book, Hope Against Hope. And I just want to finish my presentation just with one quote from him, and then I'll show you a small YouTube video about a gardener in Aleppo, in Syria. It's amazing, actually. When I saw the video for the first time, and at the same time, you know how this works, this kind of coincidence. What is coincidence? When you read a book and you look at the movie or so, and you say, wow, these two are really, oh wow, this comes together. Caputo is talking about the insistence of God, not the existence of God, yes, but the insistence, how he's insistent, how he's there in our efforts to make this world a better place, and in our hopeful responsibilities to make this world a better place. Yes. There is God, you could say, present, but always in another format, always in another presentation as we think he should, or he could be. God is always greater. He talks about God maybe God. Yeah? I think I like this eschatological sort of surplus that is coming, but also this eschatological proviso, which is already there. Yes, and he's talking about this, what hope really deeply is from a theological perspective. This quote, and then comes the last gardener in Aleppo. And I warned you, it will not go out, like Václav Havel said, it won't go out well, but it makes sense perhaps. Oh, this is really interesting. I didn't think about this when I was preparing this, but Václav Havel says, things do not always go out well, but things have a meaning, regardless from how they go out. That's precisely in the video. But listen to the text. I'll read it for you slowly, and then take a look at the video. And then we're ready. I honor the audacity of the old enlightenment, says Caputo. Dare to think, sapere aude. But I love a second audacity even more, dare to hope, sperare aude, by which the first is haunted. Hope hovers over us like a ghost, whispering in our ears impossible things, waking us with a start in the night. Hope is a spirit, the aspiration, the very respiration of God's spirit, of God's insistence, which groans to exist. Hope dares to say, come. Interrupt isolation. Dares to pray, come, to what it cannot see coming. Hope is hope in the promise of the world, inscribed on the surface of matter in a distant corner of the universe, in a rose that blossoms unseen, blossoming because it blossoms without why. This without why is a quote of Meister Eckhart, 14th century, German mystical philosopher and theologian. And Caputo takes this up as a quote. Here comes a little 6 minutes video. I would say enjoy, and I would say take a moment of prayer with you when you look at it. But do not start, I would say, the reflection on how we can restore hope and generate hope in this not only globalized world, but scattered world. The rose that blossoms without why. Thank you for your attention.